Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print, the Force is with the readers, and we return to the Marvel series and classic Star Wars for an odd issue this time. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. The issue we're looking at this time is Marvel issue number 98, entitled, and the economics teacher in me says this with glee, Supply and Demand. Now this, though, is probably better known these days as its classic Star Wars reprint from March of 1995. Little odd. Classic Star Wars, The Vandalhelm Mission. Yes, one Marvel comic that was not a film adaptation got a classic Star Wars treatment in color way back in 95 before any others did, and it seemed like the only reason that it did was because of the creative team. This is Archie Goodwin doing the writing and Al Williamson doing the art. The same people who are the men who spearheaded the probably most popular run of the Star Wars newspaper strips that at this point we're over with. It's a collaboration of them together again, so I guess that merits the Vandalhelm Mission being printed as a reprint of Supply and Demand for some reason. We can also find this, of course, these days in the pages of Star Wars Omnibus a long time ago, Volume 5. So, Chewbacca has left for Kashyyyk, Luke and Leia have their own missions, and they need Han for a mission. The Alliance of Free Planets needs Han. There's this planet called Vandalhelm, and they need ores and such from there for Fondor to help build new ships and whatnot. To get those things, though, they need to keep the Metalsmiths Guild happy. Keep the people of Vandalhelm happy. And the way they're going to do this is by bringing home these so-called venerated ones. Now, they, in this case, is Han, and since Chewie is gone, Nine Numb, who gets to be the co-pilot with Han rather than with Lando, or Lando going with Han, though Lando is in the issue. He's the one who gives Han the mission. The venerated ones are two little kids. Although she often looks more like the mom to the smaller kid. It's basically an older sister and a younger brother here. And once he gets them there, once he gets them to Vandalhelm, wouldn't you know it, there's a little more to it than that. They are the last descendants of the families that found Vandalhelm and set up the ore processing process in the first place. They're said to be sort of their family secrets. And none of the Metalsmith Guild members would continue on with work if anything were to happen to those two. And if, say, the Alliance let something happen to them, oh, that would alienate them, and they would probably align themselves with what's left of the Empire. And wouldn't you know it, the guy who is there right now, the overseer of everything, who's a guy named Guildmaster Orc, has made a secret deal with Imperial Admiral Mordor. Not murder, Mordor. And they want to, of course, kill the kids. And in doing so, by killing the kids, alienate the Rebel Alliance, and they will make their own deal for the ores and stuff that the Empire could use to build ships here to strike back at the Alliance from Vandalhelm. Not a big shocker. You wind up in a situation where there's a lot of betrayals. Oh, now you're working with the Imperials. I should have known. You know, I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you two pesky kids and the smuggler and the Sullustan. It's kind of a cheesy, very straightforward story. It doesn't really have a whole lot of oomph to it. I mean, I guess there's kind of a cool moment where Han comes down in a EVA suit and winds up fighting outside the Falcon, but we've seen that enough before. Heck, we've seen him with just a mask fighting in space in some of the stories in the Marvel series because of the fields around the ships and whatnot. There's just not a whole lot to this to really make it stand out to me. That's why I kind of look at it and think that it must be just the creative team that got it reprinted when it did. So, turns out by the end, Lando says, yeah, we thought there was something hinky going on, but we needed somebody to stir up trouble who wasn't officially with the Alliance, so that's why Han went, so that he could stir things up, and the Alliance could then find out what really is going on. And, you know, everything turns out all fine, everybody's happy in the end, smiling, you know, kind of expect the sitcom-style ending, and it's over. Blissfully, thankfully, over. It's not a bad story. It's just not a good story. It's not a bad issue. Just not a good issue. It's one of those ones you could skip and never have to think about again, and it would change nothing about your perception of Star Wars or of the Marvel series. Why this became a Marvel issue, unless it is just about that reunion, is beyond me, quite frankly. It is an odd choice for an inserted story, especially since it has nothing to do with the Nagai Toph storyline, the Nagai things that finally kind of blew up in the last 3 issues. Totally not mentioned here. This is a throwaway story out of nowhere from this very different creative team. A good creative team, a classic creative team, but a throwaway story nonetheless. So you already know the answer to my question. Is this story, Supply and Demand, aka the Vandalhelm Mission, an essential read? No, absolutely not. In fact, if you're gonna read it maybe earlier in your post-Return of the Jedi reading, because quite frankly, reading it now doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the grand scheme of things with what's going on in the mainstream Marvel series stories revolving around the Nagai and Lumaya and so forth. This just did not do it for me. But maybe for some big classic Williamson and Goodwin fans, this was an awesome issue to behold, and more power to you if that's you. Just ain't me. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the readers.